Hi, it's Juliana. The episode you're about to hear was recorded back in the fall. It's our interview with Chef Eunjo Park of Kawi, the Momofuku restaurant in New York City's Hudson Yards. Kawi has been closed for over a month now, but we hope you'll enjoy hearing Jo's story. We also have a little update from Jo about what she's been up to during coronavirus, which we'll share after the episode. Thanks for listening and take care.
Hello and welcome to K-Pod, the podcast about Korean Americans in arts and culture from Korean American Story. I'm Catherine Hong, a writer and editor.
And I'm Juliana Sohn, a photographer.
Today, Juliana and I are recording from New York's Hudson Yards, where we're sitting down with Chef Eunjo Park at her restaurant, Kawi. Kawi is the newest restaurant in David Chang's Momofuku restaurant group. It's a fine dining Korean restaurant and probably the most high profile of the wave of modern Korean restaurants to have opened recently. Eunjo, who goes by Jo, came to the States from Korea at age 12. She attended culinary school at CIA and climbed the ranks, working in some of the best kitchens in the country, including Danielle, Le Bec Fin, and Per Se. In 2013, she started working for David Chang at Momofuku Ko, an experience she's described as liberating. After several months traveling and also a devastating injury with a kitchen knife, which we'll get to later, she was invited to develop her own restaurant in the Momofuku family. We have so many questions for you. Thank you, Jo, for having us at the restaurant today.
Good afternoon. Nice meeting you guys.
So maybe we can start off talking about the day that the reviews for Kawi came in. And I think it was especially dramatic because the New York Times and Eater both came out the same day. And you'd only been open for how long?
2 months, 3 months. It was our first review of the Hudson Yard, and it came so quick. When I got an email saying that they're gonna post a review and then they're gonna come for interview. First, I was like, this is not fair. We just opened, we're just getting started, and we're getting reviewed already.
So how common is that? What's the average time that
it depends, but I think usually 6 months. So it was a surprise for everyone because we had critics coming in every week, they usually come at least 2 times. So we've had a lot of critics past month. So it was a lot of pressure. I was doing the interviews with the critic and everything was piling up. And then one day, I opened up the magazine and then we got reviewed. And afternoon, we got reviewed by Eater. So it was a day of blur. I honestly don't remember much.
What were you expecting? I mean,
I think I expected from 0 to whatever, worst case scenario to best case scenario. One thing I remember though is sitting down with Dave and we talked about what's the best review for us. And this is what Dave told me. He's to be honest, I hope you get bad review because that's gonna push you. I know you're pushing, you're doing a good job, but I feel getting really good review in the first 2 months of opening is just gonna maybe make me stop believing that I'm already doing a good job. So he's always pushing.
Right.
Well, I love that he's pushing for the atypical boss thing, which is great reviews, full restaurants, success, money, all that stuff straight away. I mean, he's technically your boss. So it's amazing that he wants you to be paced and to grow.
It's actually he's teaching me how to ride a bike and he's holding me behind the bicycle. Yeah. That's how I see him.
But, we should say for listeners who maybe don't even know how the restaurant was reviewed, very positively, I would say, right? Eater said that it was the only place worth eating at Hudson Yards, so that's pretty good. And the Times gave it 2 stars, and it seemed like a borderline 2 or 3 because the words were very positive.
It was a very good,
yeah,
very posive 2-star, and I was very thankful. Yeah.
We'd love to ask you a little bit about your childhood and how you became a chef. So you were born in?
So I was born in Seoul, Korea. I have one older sister who's 1 year older than me. We grew up in Seoul, a normal middle-class family until the Korean government, it was starting of IMF. So everyone was losing job. So I think my parents decided to own their own spot. And So somehow they ended up buying a Japanese Korean restaurant.
Were they not in the restaurant business before?
No, not at all.
What did they do?
My dad was a salaryman, and my mom worked in like a hair product, like working with my aunties. So we moved in with our grandparents in like countryside. So from living into Seoul, moving to country, and my parents, I don't know, honestly, like I don't know what their idea was, but they're like, you know what, let's move to let's just own our own thing where we can control everything, and if we need to be happier to work less, let's just try it out.
Who was the primary chef or cook?
We had a Japanese, like a sushi chef, but of course something always happens, and so my dad went to cooking school, like a sushi class, and then he later took over, but he's not. I wouldn't say like a proper sushi chef, but it was like a more like Korean Japanese, where it's like a spicy stew and a Korean style like hui, not like a sashimi.
And you were growing up on a farm?
Yeah.
Basically?
So
That's kind of great.
I just remember my first day of school, they were introducing me, and I see the classroom, like all these country kids, tan, bugs in their hair, red face. I was like, damn, like look at this kid, and they're looking at me like, wow, this like
City slicker.
right, I like a pale face, and
Okay, I'm having like flashbacks to Totoro.
no, like really, and then like I pull out my crayon, it's like 24, where there's like very little. They're very curious. I remember that, and also I remember a month after, I'm just like them, bugs in my hair, tan, like red face. I just remember my mom like yelling at me like how that happened within a month, like. Who are you? So that was the beginning of the countryside that I remember.
I see. And you lived there until you were 12, right? So tell us about coming to America.
So Korea was going through crisis. IMF happened. And my dad friend, he actually invited my father to check out Philadelphia. He owned like a grocery store. So my dad went by himself, and then he came back and basically told the family that we were gonna move to America. And I was so young that it didn't really register. I was like, yeah, like something fun, like something, we're moving. And none of our family spoke any English. Only my dad was the best at it, but now I remember, I'm like, wow, like I can't believe he went through that with carrying all of the family member, because like now I see him, I'm like, he doesn't speak any English,
Yeah. Was it really hard adjusting?
Oh, it was very hard. Like,
Were you teased or were you lonely?
I got teased. My sister got teased. They would just kick under the chair or something small. Yeah, like I remember, like we would share a bedroom and we'd be like crying. I'm like, why are we here? Like, can you please go back to Korea? Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I miss my grandma. But I'm sure my parents struggled more. I think they tried to open up a restaurant here too, but something happened, they lost the money, so they both start working at the cleaners, which is very
Korean.
Very Korean. It's the Koreans already established that society, so they start working there. My dad working double, and yeah, like small apartment. They worked a lot, so when we were home, my parents wouldn't be there, so like I would usually make small snacks. I think that's how I got into cooking. Not cooking, but like food in general.
So you didn't have family to raise you once you got here during the day because your parents were off working. So it was just
But
you and
I
your
was
sister?
so used to that, because like even in Korea, now thinking of it, it blows my mind. Like second, third graders, just like 5 of them, just running around, like staying out all night because my parents are not here. My grandparents, they're like, it's country, like they're not worried. So like, do you know the term sori? Sori literally means like going to other neighbor's farm and then digging their stuff. It's like stealing, but it's kids. So and they like start a bonfire and like roast sweet potatoes and stuff like that. So like I already, like my sister and I grew up without like having a nanny or like actual person watching over us. So it was like, okay, I didn't feel anything abnormal.
And what kind of kid were you like by the time you got to high school?
I think all throughout high school, my personality is like very private. So I only had few friends that core friends, and I started working when I was 15 because I would only get like $5 a week. So junior year and senior year, I took half of my day schedule to a tech school and learning cooking.
Wow. And so
culinary
your
arts.
parents, they supported that because they saw that you loved it, or did they try to discourage?
No, I'm very grateful because they're not typical Asian parents. They were really happy that I found something that makes me happy. So they're very, very supportive.
You went to CIA, is that right? But your parents paid for it. It's expensive, that
It's very,
degree, right?
Yeah, very, very expensive.
And where
I was
is
so
that
immature.
located?
Hyde Park in
Park.
upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, Culinary Institute of America.
And that was straight out of high school?
It was 3 days after high school.
Oh, wow. So that was your higher education.
Yeah. So
Right. And that's where you train in classic French technique and all of that really
all of
rigorous
non-Korean,
basic stuff.
yeah. I
right.
mean, it was all the American food I knew was cafeteria, and then that was it. Because after work, I would come home and then eat Korean food. Yes, it's very expensive, but I still recommend all the young cooks to go to cooking school because it really like builds your foundation. And I got out so much of it, and I had so much fun.
Do you feel like you found your people there where maybe you didn't in high school? But
And then, I think cooking actually changed my personality from really shy. I'm still very shy, but from that shy, quiet, very private into cooking. Like once I started cooking and talking about food, it really kind of opened me and then changed my personality too.
well, you must have done very well because if your first job out of school was Danielle, right? That's got to be. It's like graduating and getting your. I don't know.
I got things
Goldman
super
Sachs.
lucky.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Getting hired at somewhere like that.
I didn't know anything about Michelin stars, so I just applied like all the restaurants that everyone was applying to. And somehow they called me to come for a trail. And that time I was actually moved back to Philadelphia. I asked the chef, I was like, Chef, I'm sorry, but can you just let me out at 11:30? I have to take a bus to Philly. He's like, you came from Philadelphia? Maybe that was that, but I got hired.
Right.
So walk us through what a trial day is like.
So this is like back in 13 years ago. Trail, you come in, you don't get paid, and then you just work whatever the test that you're given, and then they just like basically see you how you fit into their kitchen, and then same for me too. I see like if I'm gonna like it here or not, and then they see your knife work, how you move in the kitchen, and they tell you if you're hired or not.
What do you think your strengths were at that time?
I guess I had nothing to lose, and I didn't know anything, so I just like focused. Yeah.
And it seems like you are an incredibly hard worker. You work like nobody else.
Yeah, I think it comes from having immigrant parents.
Yeah.
Just like watching, you can't be lazy. Just imagining what they went through for us to have this life,
Right. So tell us a little bit about, after Danielle, or a little bit about your early kitchen experience and moving throughout different kitchens.
Okay, so right after culinary school, I thought I was a chef. I was full of it. I'm like, I'm gonna be a chef. I'm gonna get paid so much. I'm gonna take care of my parents. My first paycheck was like 300 something. I was getting paid very minimum, working a lot, but I just remember struggling with everyday paycheck. It was hard. Like I was on my feet like 18 hours a day, and I was never used to it. I didn't expect this right after cooking school. So working there a little over a year, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is not for me. Maybe I should go back to normal college. You know what? Let's give it up. So I moved back to Philly actually, and just hanging out, talking to my friends and family. One of the chefs from Danielle was like, you know what? If you're just hanging out, why don't you just try out my friend's restaurant? See if maybe it's a smaller restaurant, so it might be easier for you. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. That was Lebec Fin.
Right.
I started there. 2 months in, the chef told me that he was leaving to open up his own restaurant. And I was like, at that time, I really liked him. So I was like, he's the one that really got me back to the cooking. So should I stay in Philly or should I go back to New York? So right after culinary school, I started sending out my resumes everywhere. And Chef Benno from Per Se called me. So I went to Trail, just like from Philadelphia to New York. got my job, and then worked at Per Se for a little over a year until I got my accident.
Okay, so what's the accident?
Oh, yeah. Tell us about the knife incident.
This sounds like a chef's
It's
nightmare.
horrendous. It was like first week of training a new station. I was so excited. I bought a new knives and it didn't zip up in my backpack. So I like folded it with my apron along with all the small knives. And like it didn't zip through. And I was walking with my backpack.
Oh my gosh.
Where were you? On the street?
Right after work. Basically right outside of Columbus Circle.
Okay.
My backpack just zipped open and my knives fell, but it sounds so scary, but it was that small knife that cut me. Like a little slit,
Very sharp, though.
very sharp. I didn't even feel it. It just dropped. I was like, oh, I should pick it up. And then my leg, I couldn't feel it. And then I just
So
went on the floor.
where was the cut?
Oh, like right by Achilles, but like
Uh-huh.
right across. So I'm like starting to cry.
Yeah.
I'm bleeding. My friends
Oh
were
my
like, oh my
God.
gosh, we have to take you to hospital. And the doctor's like, you're actually fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. So we'll just stitch you up. Like 2-3 stitches. That was it. I rested 2 weeks and then went back to work. Working, 16, 17 hours a day. And my foot is just to get swollen, that I started limping.
Infection, right?
I don't know. But I'm like, nothing is like hot or it didn't feel like infection, but it kept just swollen. My chef's like, Joey, you have to go see a doctor. Like, go see a podiatrist. So I went and then they're like, you actually, when you got that first cut, it was little like a tear. But I was working so much that it just ripped apart. So like my Achilles tendon was like ruptured up to my halfway.
You had to take some real time off.
So yeah, and then I had to leave Per Se. I was very upset because I worked 1 year as komi. Komi is like a prep cook. And then I finally got moved to the main kitchen. And first week, the accident happened. So I was
Oh.
very, very upset. So it was a long surgery. And then I moved to Philadelphia. And then I was bedridden for a few months. Yeah, and then started physical therapy. And then spent 1.5 years.
Oh my God.
It's a lot of
I
recovery.
think I
from
could
that.
have actually finished everything in 8 months, but my parents were like, "This is your only time that you're gonna have a full rest, and I know you're gonna go back to work, so just take your time now."
Yeah.
It's interesting hearing that and the time frame, because when you read about you and your career, it's this like list of these like fabulous restaurants and this like great education, and you hear about how that broke down and how you had to stop and then reconfigure it, and then you had to stop, and then I think you've gone back to Philly about 3 times now.
Yeah, no, seriously though, like
Yeah.
people think that right after high school, culinary school, Danielle Per Se, like and it wasn't like that. Like I struggled so much. Like after Danielle, I'm like, I can't do this. After Per Se, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like there's always that little hill that I feel like I can't. But then I take a step back and then it gets me.
And you were
going.
at these, storied restaurants, but you hadn't been there long enough to kind of prove yourself. So there must have been a worry about leaving that.
Right. So after 1.5 years, when I'm like, okay, I'm really ready to go back, I was like, I have to go back to Per Se. Because like, if I don't go back, this thing's gonna just stay with me forever. So yeah, I went back to Per Se after 2 years. And I'm like, okay, now I see what Per Se food is. But what else do I need to know? And a good friend of mine was a good friend of a chef at Momofuku Ko. And he actually reached out to me saying like, hey, are you looking for a job? We're actually looking for a line cook, like come for a trail.
Per Se is pretty much regarded as the best restaurant in America. Momofuku Ko is so different. It's not even in the same category because it's only 12 seats. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Tell
could
us a
never
little bit
get a
about it.
reservation there.
Yeah, you can't. That's the fun of it, I guess. You can't get in.
I think I was very ignorant back then. Like, I'm a Per Se cook, and I was actually not interested in Momofuku. I saw Momofuku as a ramen shop, and I wanted to stay like a Michelin star, fine dining. I'm like, I'm gonna stay classic French. I'm gonna do all this like beautiful, like a foam and whatever. And but like just give it a try. It's a small restaurant, and I hear good things about it. So Momofuku Ko back then, the old Ko was originally old noodle bar spot where it's like a sushi counter. There's 12 seats. There's only 3 cooks, that's it. And there's no front of the house. Maybe just one like person.
It's the most personal dining experience you're going to have.
I've never experienced it. Just seeing like the food that guests are eating, the one that you just handed to them. And then the expression that they're like, wow, or like, oh, it's okay. Or that was so fun to me. And I was like, I really want to be part of it. And yeah, luckily I got hired. So I stayed with the company. I started Momofuku.
And at Ko, you were able to explore different kinds of cuisine, right?
It was so, like you mentioned, it was very liberating. Using fish sauce, soy sauce, all these like funky things that I didn't think, I was embarrassed before as a child, you know. But now I'm like showing it off, making this dish better by using a 1 drop of fish sauce. I was like, wow, like this is where I belong.
So then after Momofuku Ko, you spent some time traveling. Is that right? Like backpacking by yourself?
Yeah. So I was like 28 or 29, turning 29 before 30. Just working New York back and forth from Philadelphia. I didn't even travel within states. So like I have to travel. I kept telling my friends years that I wanted to travel, but you know, with the cook's salary, you can save money. But at Ko, I was able to save some money because back then we were getting tipped. So I was able to save some money. And I think a few months after turning 29, I was like, I know Momofuku Ko now, so I think I'm ready to leave. Dave actually sat me down to have me stay longer. And he actually told me that he wanted me to grow within the company back then. But I was sure that this is what I wanted to do. So I quit. I put all my stuff, my parents, back in Philly.
So is this the time when you spent time in the temple?
No, so they were just actually traveling Korea, and then I met up with a friend who we met at Per Se. Her name is Lucy. She runs Pichana and Kawi in Korea. And she's like, if you want to learn Korean food, I have a restaurant here. So just move back when you're ready. I was like, all right, you know what? I'll think about it. And then after traveling, I came back. My sister had a baby, so I stayed with them for a little bit, spent some time with them, and moved back to Korea to work.
So she offered you that job. And why did you think, I'm ready to leave New York? Or what was it about going back to Korea that appealed to you?
I think it happened during Ko. Chefs gave me a lot of freedom to be like, hey, like, create some like canapé, or there are like a lot of things that I wanted to do to put up a dish, but I didn't know much of Korean food, but I still get inspired by it because I eat it every day. And I'm like, if I want to make a food that's representing myself, that I should know it. So just like going to cooking school, I'm like, maybe I should learn the foundation. One thing that really was interesting to me was that K-town food is every Korean food that you know in one restaurant. You have bibimbap, you have kalbi, you have noodles, everything. Yeah. But Korea, I realized that they only have special, and I loved it. Like, you know, like you can just go this restaurant for like really good kimchi stew, and then you go for this tofu. So I searched for them, and then I had so much fun eating those food, and especially going to the markets. It's actually like insane how much greens or herbs that you've never heard before or tasted before. It's like so many in Korea. So I highly recommend. Like, when was the last time?
Gosh, I think it was like 13 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, 14 years ago.
Oh, I went in 1989. And that's
you have to go.
I know, it's really different.
Yeah, food is amazing.
So you were working at the fine dining Kāwi, and in your free time you were exploring and tasting and going all to these little restaurants in Korea.
Drinking a lot of soju.
So you were a chef in a Korean restaurant in Korea?
My title was like a junior sous chef.
And this is like a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Korea, right? One of the best restaurants in Seoul, would you say? Tell us the name again.
It's Gaon, Gaon. There's only 2 Michelin 3-star restaurants in Korea, and one's Shilla and one's Gaon. So
How did this restaurant get started?
Oh, Kawi?
Kawi, yeah.
When I was working at Kaon, Dave came to Korea for the Pyeongchang Olympics, and he came to interview the chef, and then he knew that I was working there, so we met up. He sat me down. He's like, Joe, like there's this new project happening, and I really want you to be part of it. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm like, chef, like there's no way. And then he's like, okay, just think about it. And he came back 3 months later. He sat me down one more time, and he talked in more details. Like, this is your growth. I believe in you. Like, at the time, I didn't believe in myself, but just knowing that someone like Dave is really believing in myself, and then for him to come to Kaon to tell me all these stories, to have me back in the restaurant, I think that got me motivated.
So he knew he wanted to do a Korean restaurant, is that right?
No, like
what was his idea back then? Or
it was an empty thing. Even after I joined, I had no idea it was gonna be Kāwi, that Kāwi is it right now. We discussed, is it gonna be Korean? Is it gonna be Korean American? What is it gonna be? Like, you know what, let's just test it out. And then it's like, do whatever you want. I'm like, chef.
It's scary sometimes,
I'm like,
given
chef,
that too many options, too much freedom.
I'm like, chef, but I don't know what I want. I don't even know my voice. So he guided me. He's been very, very patient. He's still now.
It says right on your website that this is your vision, and he's giving you this license to express yourself. He doesn't want this to be like every other Momofuku, right?
Yeah.
So, I wish we had David Chang here right now because some of the things that I remember from that interview was that there is a whole empire of Momofuku, and they all have a commonality. And this is something that is the part of the group and has the same maybe philosophy and ideology, but this is specifically you, and he's pushing it to be more you and have your voice. And if it's the first in the Momofuku enterprise that is that, like, do you know, or has he ever said what he saw in you or what he wanted? Like, what of you did he want to be part of his group? Do you know what it is?
Honestly, I don't know. And like, I'm like, chef. Sometimes I'm like,
Why me?
I know, like, it's too much, chef, But the one thing that he tells me is that I know how hard it is, I know you're not gonna give up. That's why I want you to fail. And that's one thing that is my biggest struggle right now, is failing. I'm so scared of failing because past 10 years of cooking, I've only learned how to make it perfect, how to make it, like, everything was controlled. But now, like, just like an open thing.
Right. Well, this is a new restaurant. It's not like you're stepping into an established place that's already got its full staff and its menu. I mean, you had to build a menu from scratch.
I honestly think my biggest struggle is now, not the opening of the restaurant. Because opening of the restaurant, although I had my voice in there, it was a lot of guidance from all other chefs in the restaurant. There was a lot of help. But here, after the post-opening, like the post-review, now I think it's chapter 1 of Kāwi. And now Dave is saying, even before, but he's like really pushing for me to be like, I really need you to really, this is your restaurant. Like, believe it in, like, this is not my restaurant, this is yours. And you need to build your own culture, and you need to build your own voice. And then, but I'm so scared. It's so much work. So that's where I'm at right now.
So let's talk about the food.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing we haven't actually talked about. Can you tell us about a couple dishes that you are excited to have on that menu? Let's hear.
Kimbap. It's very interesting because it's such a humble food that people look down to. But
it's like the lesser sushi is what
right.
I think.
That's what I was gonna say.
People
like
think.
People see Japanese food as like a high-end, super expensive, super fancy, but why can't be Korean food like that? Why only image of Korean food is soju, like gnarly stew, like a cheap kimbap. So we're testing a bunch of things, and then we're like, you know what, like let's just do whatever we want to put it inside kimbap. Some Koreans may look at it and be like, that's not kimbap. I'm like, who are you to tell me it's not kimbap? I say it's kimbap. So we start playing around, and I just want people to have this different look of Korean food, you know?
So what's in your kimbap?
We have 5 kimbaps now. First one is pickled veggie. So all these different pickles, kale, char kale is served with habanero sauce and little banja, beet banja.
That sounds so good.
Other kimbap is marinated foie gras with chive and citrus soy jelly.
Tell us about another dish.
Rice cake. We decided to do rice cake, and I think to make really good rice cake, it's all about, of course, the flour, but the freshness of when it's steamed and how long it's been sitting before the guests are eating. So we decided to make our own. We got a rice cake extruder from Korea. We ventured out Flushing to source really nice rice cake flour. And this small shop decided that they're willing to send 600 pounds every week. So we get them hand delivered. We steam them and we extrude it through our extruder. And then it gets pan fried, or we have 3 different styles of rice cake.
It must be hard finding chefs who can cook with these ingredients, right? Because there are not that many chefs in New York trained.
Of course.
That, yeah.
But I love having, I don't think you have to be Korean to create a delicious creative Korean food. I honestly think it comes a lot from my other sous chefs who's not Korean, who has no experience in Korean food. If there's a piece of meat that I know is kalbi, to me as a Korean, I can only see it as kalbi. But for them, they're like, oh, what is this? Is this a barbecue? Or is this a slow roasted something? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it could be that way. So it really balances out. They bring really good ideas, and then I add little Korean touch to it. So yeah, really good team together.
You said that this restaurant isn't even close to what you want it to be. This is still a developing restaurant. Is there anything you can tell us about what you want to do here?
It's not that it's not a restaurant that I don't like, or
not that you don't like it, but that
I'm still finding my voice and finding my style of cooking. So I think I don't know how that's gonna end up, or I don't know how that's gonna look, but I know there's so much more that we are just so excited to work on it. Yeah, just very excited for more personal touch and more characteristic than generic restaurant. That's what I want. I want people to come to Kāwi and be like, this is Kāwi's food, and I can actually really taste the care and the love went into it, because that's one thing that I drill all my cooks. It's something I'm learning, that you can't drill people to care about what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So right now I'm just showing them how much I care, and hopefully they pick it up from that.
Well, we're so excited to try this food.
I'm so excited to have you guys.
That's what we should do now, is eat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
No, thank you so
happy
much.
to meet you. Hi again, it's Catherine. Since recording the episode, Kāwi was announced as a semi-finalist for Best New Restaurant by the James Beard Foundation. The winners will be announced in May. And earlier this week, we checked in with Jo, who's been socially distancing at home in New York City since the restaurant closed on March 14th. She reports that she's been conferencing with the team at Momo and that she's tried to teach herself to play piano and guitar. She also told us that she's made a few batches of kimchi and that she's been eating lots of rice, noodles, and kimchi jjigae. Mostly, she's looking forward to getting back in the kitchen at Kāwi. Thanks for listening, everybody, and take care. K-Pod is a production of KoreanAmericanStory.org. Our editor is AJ Valente. Our producer is Jessica Park, and our executive producer is HJ Lee. You can follow K-Pod and see Juliana's photographs of our subjects on our new Instagram at KPodPod. That's KPODPOD. And you can always email us with comments and suggestions at kpod@KoreanAmericanStory.org. Thanks.